Today I'm covering a movie that asks, what if we combined a ton of buddy cop cliches with superhuman feats of strength, Dolph Lundgren draped in a kimono, wielding a katana sword, and just poured a ton of 80s action movie cheese all over it? The result would be 1991's Showdown in Little Tokyo, a beautifully absurd 79-minute explosion of ridiculous one-liners, flying bodies, chopped limbs, entrancing tattoos, over-the-top villains, and an unstoppable bromance. This movie delivers a roundhouse kick to the face of subtlety, and we're diving into it from top to bottom in this episode of Magically Ridiculous. What's up out there, everybody? I hope you guys are all doing fantastic today. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, welcome to Movies Never Say Die. I'm Anthony DeJoya. This is your one-stop shop for retro movie content, and today we're diving into one of my lifelong favorites. I always remember there was this video store that I went to all the time as a kid. It was owned by this couple that was really probably younger than I am right now, but they were super nice. The wife was a little bit by the book, but the husband was all about that money. So as long as it wasn't a video from behind the curtain, if you know what I mean, he was pretty much down to rent us whatever we want. I remember one day I rented Ricochet, Free Jack, and Showdown in Little Tokyo on one summer afternoon, and I've loved this movie ever since. Sure, it's easy to spot this movie's flaws. I mean, it opens with more than 2 minutes of just gloriously over-embellished Asian-themed musical scoring and slow-motion, shadowy tattoo shots, then shifts right into Lundgren on the case, kicking the crap out of a few guys at an underground fight before he literally jumps over a moving car in pursuit of these guys, all of which happens in the first 6 minutes. So, yeah. However, if you love ultra cheesy, self-indulgent B-action movies, then to me, Showdown in Little Tokyo is essentially Citizen Kane with martial arts, one-liners, macho banter, and a sprinkle of gratuitous nudity that young Anthony greatly appreciated growing up.
You know, this is a weird part of town.
Now, as for this plot, it's as comically by the book as you would expect, and really outside of all the violent killing, the casual drug use, and unprotected sex, this movie kind of plays like an action movie version of a Saturday morning cartoon on a mental level, and I kind of dig it. First, though, let's get into the major players in this delightful little action romp, starting with Dolph Lundgren front and center as Detective Chris Jenner, this handsome and stoic yet imposing tower of justice. This is a man of few words and a full set of vanity muscles who practices his martial arts in his softly lit home dojo. He conveniently grew up in Japan. He speaks the language, and his character comes complete with a leather jacket and a tragic backstory that will naturally tie into the focal plot later on. Lundgren plays this character essentially like a Nordic samurai fueled on protein shakes who just falls into a flashback trance anytime he sees a tattoo, and he apparently blows through partners like Dirty Harry.
Sorry, good luck. Look, these are my ex-partners.
Which leads us to Brandon Lee as Detective Johnny Murata. This is Kenner's new partner and easily this movie's MVP of hilarious one-liners. Now, Lee's character is given zero backdrop. Just as written, he's playing the comedic relief, and Kenner's sidekick, Murata, is part Japanese, yet knows nothing about Japanese culture, which is convenient. This allows him to frequently ask questions to set up Kenner's spots of expositional dialogue to explain the comical layers of the story to us. Martial arts is also in Murata's backdrop as well. He's got a more acrobatic style of martial arts. He's loaded with finesse kicks and backflips and punches as fast as his amazing collection of one-liners, and despite the limitations on paper, Lee easily steals this movie with his likable charm, and he injects the entire film with a much-needed dose of charisma.
Cop, policeman, you understand? It's bad to shoot me. He's a cop too. It's bad to shoot him.
So those are our heroes, but no action movie is complete without an over-the-top villain, and bless its heart, Showdown in Little Tokyo delivers an over-the-top over-the-top villain with the great Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa as the sadistic Yoshida, leader of the Iron Claw clan of the Yakuza. And man, Tagawa as Yoshida here, to me at least, is just the chef's kiss of action movie villains. He's ruthless, he's frequently snarling, cartoonish, often smirking at his acts of violence. I think Yoshida is slightly comical and an often charming psychopath who just does it all in this movie: extortion, murder, kidnapping, jug running. Yoshida even comes complete with his own shady nightclub after a hostile takeover, which we all know is a must-have for any professional action movie villain. So that is the focal trio of this glorious action flick. There's a couple other players here and there that we'll talk to as we dive into the plot, which, like I said, is just a tracing paper thin checklist of action movie cliches that do just enough to connect all the fight sequences, the banter, and the shootout. So Showdown in Little Tokyo makes no effort in hiding the fact that the plot is secondary to all the action. It all kicks off with Lundgren's Kenner infiltrating an underground fight at the Bonsai Club, so before you can even sit back and dig into your popcorn, Kenner's already kicking ass and dropping clunky one-liners. Conveniently, this is also when the villains make their entrance. Yoshida's henchmen arrive in a hostile takeover attempt, which of course is bad timing when Kenner's on the case, who, while in pursuit, just casually leapfrogs a car full of bad guys. That next morning, Kenner is introduced to his new partner Murata, but of course it can't just be a simple meeting of partners. No. Showdown in Little Tokyo delivers you the classic mistaken identity meeting. Kenner and Murata fight it out with each other while a group of Yakuza are attempting to strong-arm the owner of a sushi joint, but this just so happens to be Kenner's favorite sushi joint. So instead of allowing these men to extort money from this poor lady, Kenner activates and saves the day while also helping destroy her small business, complete with the textbook man through the window as the cherry on the sundae. From here, this plot really just goes through the motions of the action movie checklist. Yoshida kills a mole inside his group so that there will be a case for Kenner and Murata to work while they continue to develop their budding bromance. Like I said earlier, Kenner is adept at Japanese culture. Murata knows nothing about it, so Kenner gives him a crash course on Japanese culture as they work through the case. Fortunately, though, for both of us, they are both great at martial arts, so as they are working this case on Yoshida, they easily engage in many quick fights and takedowns to get where they need to go. Also, this movie, as it shifts from Kenner and Murata on the case to Yoshida and the Yakuza, comes just an amazing shift in the scoring as well. Throughout this movie, the scoring just frequently shifts from the moody Asian-themed instrumental scoring to an almost playful buddy cop melody, and it's subtle but awesome and easily a frequent reminder of how magically ridiculous this movie is. Now, diving back into the story, naturally Kenner learns pretty early on that it was Yoshida who killed his parents when he was a kid. Huge shocker there. That's something that only fuels his motivation to take all the bad guys down if he can keep his cool. But fortunately for him, by this point, Murata has already fallen in love with Kenner. He knows all the safe words. He's able to talk him down. And in one situation, after dropping some classic cop wisdom to the Yakuza, Murata is actually able to save both their lives by talking their way out of a tense situation so they can continue working the case. While on the search for their clues on this case, Kenner and Murata come across Minako, played by Tia Carrere, a stunning lounge singer at the Bonsai Club who, sorry Johnny, will become Kenner's new love interest. Minako is written like a true damsel in distress. She's not given much to do other than feed Kenner and Murata information on the Yakuza and to look amazing, which she knocks out of the park. Plus, if she wasn't in the movie, she wouldn't need to be saved in the middle of the film, where one of the best scenes of the movie is where Kenner goes full-on one-man army mode to save her from Yoshida's house. This is where Kenner is taking dudes out with ease and punching through doors and barrel roll shooting. He's jumping off the roof with Minako in his arms and flipping a car like the Bionic Man, and it's just as absurd as it is comical, as it is fun to watch. This leads into a bit more casework, a soak in the jacuzzi, a casual sex scene, a little bit more banter, and then the final act kicks in. This is where the gusto of the movie really shines. Kenner grabs his trusty assault rifle and his finest kimono, and along with Murata, they make their final strike on Yoshida and the Yakuza at the Red Dragon Brewery. It's just a spectacle-filled 15 minutes of textbook action movie gunplay and explosions as they work through the henchmen. This leads to Murata's final fight with Yoshida's number one, Sato, a sidekick versus sidekick, and a solid martial arts battle that Murata naturally comes out the victor of. Which leads us to the last final battle, and this is where Showdown in Little Tokyo comes full circle and delivers what the title suggests: a showdown in the streets of Little Tokyo. It's Kenner, suddenly oiled up and topless, versus Yoshida, the man who killed his parents, on the rise to become a crime boss, in a sword fight on the streets with the citizens watching. It goes back and forth, but there is no way Kenner loses this fight, and in true ultra-gratuitous fashion, Kenner sticks Yoshida to the pinwheel display and turns him into a part of the fireworks show to remind you one last time how gloriously cheesy what you just watched really was. And there's no denying this movie is ridiculous, but it's all about watching Lundgren punching, kicking, and tossing bad guys in ways that defy both physics and common sense, while Brandon Lee just delivers quips and drops jokes like he's working material for open mic night at the Laugh Factory.
You have the right to be dead.
Showdown in Little Tokyo is a movie that doesn't believe in wasting time. If there's a door, Lundgren's busting it down. If there's a beautiful woman, he's making love to her. If there's a bad guy in the way, he's throwing him through a window with Lee right behind him to deliver a cheesy joke. And true to the action movie playbook, it's all topped off with an oily, shirtless sword fight. This movie isn't just a B action movie. It's a glorious, testosterone-fueled fever dream. It's perfectly ridiculous and just undeniably over the top, and it's a movie that knows exactly what it is. And that's it for this episode of Magically Ridiculous, covering 1991 Showdown in Little Tokyo. Let me know what you guys think of this movie down in the comments. Is it magically ridiculous in your book, or just ridiculous? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I know there's 1,000 other channels you can be on right now, but you guys are here with me, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Be on the lookout for my next video coming real soon, and until then, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?